taking all the limits, stepping up the game, no one ever gonna finish. Hit the streets, the city's on fire, every moment we live, it's a heart's desire. Dreams in the real view, future's looking bright, living for the hustle, shining through the night. Feel the beat drop, it's a rhythm in our soul, with every step we take, we're closer to our goal.
Hello, everybody, and it's right after another episode of Warrior Vetrepreneur Podcast. It's been back-to-back today, but today I have Travis Johnson here, and he's got quite the history with podcasting. But first, I want to thank everybody for being part of this journey with me, especially since we did this recent rebranding. I know a lot of you veterans out there that were like, why don't you just make it a more veteran-focused podcast? And I wasn't going to do it, but I'm like, man, how much more fun would my conversations be on these if I did these with nothing but veteran entrepreneurs, otherwise known as vetrepreneurs? So here we are. Travis, how you doing today, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great, JG. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing amazing. Over here in West Virginia, doing some flood relief. So last live stream we had some internet issues, but hopefully that doesn't happen this time. That seems like for about the past 30 minutes we've had a solid connection. So you served in the Navy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you did a whole bunch of stuff there. I believe you said you were a pilot at one time. You did some enlisted time while you were there. Not sure what you did as an enlisted man, but then even while you were still serving, you grew a podcast too. I'll let you say the numbers, whatever you're comfortable with, but now you're helping people with that. So if you wouldn't mind, kind of share what that journey looked like, a little bit of your background, and let's share another successful story out there so these veterans can be inspired to go out there and win.
Yeah, sure, JJ. So my Navy career was 22 years. I did 11 enlisted, 11 commissioned. First 11 were fixing ejection seats on F-18s and flying or working on the big E-6B Mercury. I've got my background here, no ejection seats, but a lot of crew systems and crew comfort, oxygen, emergency systems. Then I got accepted to the Seaman to Admiral program, went to college, went to flight school, eventually earned my Naval Flight Officer wings, not quite a pilot. They said I was too old, and I told them I still wanted to fly, and they said, this is our only option, so that's what I did. And then I got stationed in Bahrain, which you're looking at the videos, this little dagger-looking thing on my wall here. And I knew I was going to be over there for a year without my family, and I should be doing something that's productive, because if I don't do something that's productive, I know that I'm going to get myself into trouble. So I ended up starting a podcast called the Nonprofit Architect Podcast, and it really focused on interviewing people and helping them build stronger nonprofits. So whoever the guest was on, they were sharing their expertise, breaking it down Barney style so they could, do better things with their nonprofits. And I thought it would make sense to do nonprofit coaching and consulting. I had a background in it. I had all these contacts. It made a lot of sense to me. And I started promoting that as something I was doing. And it turned out that nobody wanted nonprofit coaching and consulting. I had one client, it went great, but really largely I wasn't getting a lot of feedback, not a lot of good, positive feedback from that offering. And I talked to a mentor of mine. I was considering hanging it up and stopping. And he asked me, he's like, well, what does your audience want from you? And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, have you asked them what they want from you? And I said, well, of course I've done that. So I started, typing it in into a Facebook group where I had everybody like, what do you guys want from me? And what I got was the overwhelming response is that people wanted to know why I was doing so well in the podcasting game. I was fairly new to it, but I had impressive numbers. We hit number 4 in the US within 3 months of launching. I had something like 18,000 downloads at the time. And I had another vetpreneur reached out to me who had been podcasting for 3 years, and I had triple the downloads he had. He's like, what are you doing? And well, I was like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And he's like, well, can you walk me through all of this stuff? And he took his podcast from 6,000 to 600,000 downloads in 10 months using the principles that I was doing with my show and the things that I was doing. So I had a little bit of traction there, ended up writing a couple of books on podcasting. I think I've got 6 total podcasting books right now. 1 podcast course that's available in 3 universities. And I've got a podcast agency where we teach you how to get to the next level of your business through podcasting, whether as a host or as a guest.
Excellent. So if somebody wanted not necessarily just a podcast, because I mean it's really the same. There's some growth techniques with podcasts specifically, but starting a business is starting a business. I mean, you have to figure out your niche
Yeah.
and then how to appeal to them, right? So, if somebody wanted to start a business, what's one piece of advice that you would give them?
Well, you have to know what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and then you have to be willing to listen to people to adjust as you go. Right. My first foray into what I thought was going to be the business of my future, nobody wanted, but I had some success. I had some traction in podcasting itself. And then when I finally asked them what they wanted from me, they told me exactly what they wanted from me. And you start doing what people want from
Yes.
you specifically, and the money started flowing in. I wrote an ebook. It was the ultimate podcast guide. It was neither ultimate nor complete, but that's what I sold it as for $27. In 2 weeks, I made $3,000 selling a $27 ebook. So I had an idea that people were aligned with me with what I was doing. As soon as I gave them what they asked for, like the proof was in the money.
Hmm, that is interesting. So so you said you had 6 books. Did you ever what you would consider to be finish that one book that made you all that money, or did you just publish it the way it was?
I published it the way I was. I wrote the first book in 5 weeks and put it out there. I didn't have any system set up right. I put the offer out, and I was, no kidding, like Sunday night game night with my friends and family, and I'm on my phone like emailing, sending out a PayPal link, emailing it directly to people. And after about 50 or so sales, I'm like, I got to do something different. I went, there's a website called ejunkie.com where it gives you a pay link, and it charges you $4 a month to use it. But the pay link goes directly to, I don't know, I had it set up to PayPal. And then as soon as they paid, the PDF got shipped directly to their email, and it took all the heavy lifting out of that. So after the first week, automated the process. One of the things that I like to do every time I repeat something, I ask myself, can I delegate this, eliminate this, or automate this? DEA, delegate, eliminate, automate, and automated the process, and everything kept rolling in.
Delegate, eliminate, or automate. That's
Yeah.
I'm gonna remember that. And if I don't remember that, I at least have the video of this to reflect back on that.
Yeah.
um,
Well, I don't think I answered your question. You asked if I had finished the book. Well, the book, I wrote it in like 5 weeks, and then it was 2 years later, or it wasn't even 2 years later. There was so much more information of podcasting out there. I broke the first book down into 3 books, and I
okay.
made each section much, much more robust. And I wrote 2 extra books. So I took the information that was in the first one and turned it into 3, added a ton of information, and then wrote 2 more. It just made more sense to have them in separate pieces, so you could go to the series of books and get the piece that you needed and not have to get through everything.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah, podcasting really has evolved a lot. Now it seems like everyone wants to do it. So there are so many people out there, and it's a good idea to grow your business. I mean, I wouldn't say that necessarily, and I don't mind sharing this with everybody on my audience right now. I haven't necessarily done this to make money from podcasting, but I've been using podcasting to grow my network. And so my network and referrals and all that other stuff, I mean, you're right. It's a great way to leverage growing an audience and kind of making a business that way. Plus, gosh, this is a fun way to do it, in my opinion. It's just a fun
Yeah.
way to do it.
Yeah, it's really a good time. There was something Arsenio Hall said a couple of years ago. He was on Celebrity Apprentice, and they had a challenge. They had to raise something like $50,000 for charity over the weekend, and came back Monday, and Arsenio was the only person that didn't end up raising the money. And as he was explaining to Donald Trump why that didn't go, he kind of paused and he said, it's like, when I had my show, everybody answered my phone call.
Oh,
And when he didn't have his show, he was no longer, quote unquote, important to these people. So people stopped answering. It's something unique and something special happens when you're the host of a show. You
Yes.
kind of become this, I don't know, mini celebrity, depending on what circle that you're in. Like I go to some conferences, no one knows who I am. I go to the military influencer conference, everybody knows who I am. You know what I mean? When you're around your core group of people. But when you are the host of a show, you become that person that knows people.
Yeah.
You become the person that shares their platform. You become that person that has this kind of hub of information, hub of knowledge, hub of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to be a host, let me tell you.
Well, and what's interesting, and we can keep on with the interview after this, but I just have to say that it's been so cool because one way I make referrals is I will pop up, I will grab a link to one of my videos and say, hey, look, you should check this guy out. You might be great to work with this person. And so really what I'm doing is building a directory of video interviews that, I can use as business referrals. But podcasting is, you're right. It's just so fun. But since I like to focus on the veteran aspect of things, I have to ask, because we all struggle when we get out of the military. Maybe you had a thing going on, and I don't know how that went for you when you left, but oftentimes we struggle with an identity crisis because we have a rank, we have a job description, we have a very, very, very specific purpose and a mission once we're in the military. That may change from duty station to duty station, but overall, we're kind of in the suck together, and everything that we do, it's just part of the same overall mission, which is to support and defend the United States of America. So
Mhm.
when you transition into business ownership, one, how did that go to you, and how has that shaped the way that you have started and run a business?
Yeah, so everyone has their own transition story, and I'm no different there. I was 3 years ago when I retired, and I had been trying. I was in the podcast. I still was trying to do the nonprofit angle, the nonprofit coaching and consulting. And when I got out of the military, I had all these things set up, or I thought I had these things set up. I had a skill bridge that I was doing. And I went to go retire. And the month that I retired, my wife had brain surgery. She's fine. Everything's fine. We had to fly out to Baltimore to Johns Hopkins to get it done. I'm in Oklahoma City currently. And the week I retired, I had my last day in the military. I had my first day as a civilian. Had the DD 214 and the email. And the way SkillBridge works is they're supposed to give you a job offer. Well, I called my SkillBridge partner and said, "Hey, what's the job offer?" And they offered me minimum wage part time, $7.50 an hour for 20 hours a week. And I'm retiring as a 03E, as a lieutenant. And I'm like, "Hey man, this is a really crappy job offer. What's the deal?" And he's like, "Well, I can't really tell you." I was like, "My wife just had brain surgery. You better tell me something." And he's like, "Well, here's the deal. We're trying to acquire another company. And, with everything as it is right now, like the only thing we can offer you is this." I was like, "Well, when are you acquiring this company?" He's like, "Well, it's March 15th. I was like, "Well, I can't sign. I can't say yes that I'm going to work for minimum wage part-time. So I'm going to put this on hold and I'll call you on the 15th. He's like, "Okay." So the next day, so this is a Tuesday now. Wednesday, grandma turns 91. Thursday, grandma dies. Right. Right. My wife's still recovering from brain surgery, right? Friday, I created a course from my first podcast book that is accredited and available at 3 universities. So you can, no kidding, get college credit from taking my podcast course, which is really cool. Saturday morning, my daughter gets married. And fun fact, she told us 10 days before that she planned on getting married. And Saturday evening was my retirement party. I didn't have a ceremony because of the brain surgery. So like this week in time, completely changed my life. Just really dramatic, really over the top, really kind of crazy. And we drove to Minnesota on that Monday to go to the funeral. And up there, my wife asked me, she's like, "I kind of want to stay and help, grandpa with the farm. Like, would that be all right?" She's post-op brain surgery. It's a farm that's been continually occupied by her family for 130 years. So it went through the Great Depression. It went through hoarding. It went through all of that stuff. And she's like, well, can I stay? And I'm like, I don't know what to say. I ended up caving and letting her stay to help grandpa with the farmhouse. So I'm driving back from Minnesota. It's like a 13-hour drive. I've got my son with me who's 14. He can't help me. My wife's post-op brain surgery. She can't help me. My daughter's married and out of the house. She can't help me. And I call, it's March 15th. So I call my SkillBridge partner. I said, well, hey, what's the deal? He's like, well, the acquisition fell through. We are bankrupt. We can't give you $10 an hour, let alone, or $10, let alone $10 an hour. And I'm driving back with just this weight of everything that we're dealing with. Luckily, we had, a bunch of money in the bank. We had, things, what we thought we had everything set up. And I get back to my house and there's this huge manila envelope from the VA. I rip it open and it says I've got 90%. I'm going to get paid on April 1st. And I'm just like, oh my God.
No kidding.
Like something came through. I'm going to have some kind of money flowing in. And then like a day or two later, I found out I was going to get paid for my retirement May 1st. So, all the veterans that went ahead of me in time and really fought to get the retirement process, the getting out of the military process, the VA process smoothed out. Like, I'm so glad for all that work that was done ahead of time, because that part of my transition was relatively quick and relatively smooth. But I started freaking out, all that stuff that I thought I had done, that I had prepared for, wasn't there. I didn't have my podcast business yet. Or I did. It wasn't, it was in the beginning stages, but that summer is when I turned that one book into 3 books and wrote 2 more, where I came out with 5 books that summer, started signing a bunch of clients, and it really kind of lit that fire under me to have something going, because I couldn't really go work a regular job when my wife was going to take, 8 to 10 months to recover from brain surgery, right? I needed to be in the house. So I had that, kind of exciting factor that, put a little bit of energy into me to make me do something, to put that spark in me to make me do something specific. And I probably wouldn't have chosen to have it happen that way. Right? Like, how do you want to do this? Well, I want my whole world to be burning down. Everything needs to be on fire. And I need to have no help anywhere. That's how I want to do it. It's not how we would choose to do it.
Right.
But that inciting incident got me up and moving and towards the path of getting some other money coming in, to really, and to give me something to do instead of just worrying about everything that was burning down around me.
Yeah. I tell you what, the one thing that stands out from everything that you just said was the world is burning down. You're worried about your wife, but this woman just had brain surgery. You mentioned that she has 8 to 10 months of recovery, but she's out there helping on a farm. What a wild woman. I love it, man. That's great.
Yeah. You can't, those people, you just can't tell them anything. They're just going to do whatever they're going to do.
Yep.
I was talking to my dad about it. He's
my wife too.
He's like, have you ever been able to tell her to do anything? Have you ever been able to make her do anything? And I'm like, no. He's like, what makes you think you can now? And I was worried initially, but she was post-op brain surgery. So she slept 12 hours or more a day. She went over and put some of grandma's clothes in a Goodwill bag that her dad, grandpa ended up taking, into town for her. So it's not like she was doing farm work. It's not like she was doing anything strenuous. She was barely awake when she was awake. So it wasn't like she was in any danger. I didn't feel that way when she was asking. I was like, what are you going to go and go feed the pigs at, 4 a.m? Like, you can't be doing that. Like,
no. Well, but sometimes, and part of my healing process with a lot of the surgeries and stuff like that I've gone through, never done brain surgery. Some people, when they start joking around with me, they wonder if I need it, but no, that's a different story. But being busy can help with the healing process, and I think that's probably why she's doing it. There's nothing worse than having to sit on the couch and woe is me while you're healing up from something. Gosh, especially when you're normally a person who's up, moving around, maybe very active, you're used to running, hiking, whatever the case may be. I mean, sitting on the couch and healing is the worst thing in the entire world.
Yeah, it really isn't. It's really not that pleasant.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, good on her. But all that stuff you said about your journey, and I just keep on thinking about this woman who's recovering from brain surgery and running a farm. That's awesome. But no, your journey is amazing, and you got to the business ownership. Now you have a staff, and you're teaching people how to do podcasting. What's when it comes to podcasting, and this isn't just for me because a lot of people are trying to get into this. What's one piece of advice for a podcaster that if they wanted to go out there and actually do it as a business model, what's one thing that you would as a nugget that would probably help them along that journey?
I
Well,
mean,
that's a great question, and
Yeah.
there's a couple of things. The first major thing that you have to do is you have to sign up to do it for at least 6 months, doing one episode a week. There's 26 episodes. It gives you some time to get comfortable, to understand what you're doing, understand the process. The vast majority of people don't make it to episode 10.
Wow.
They release 2 or 3 episodes. They're like, why am I not a millionaire yet? Why don't I have a zillion followers? And the truth is, when you start podcasting, you are going to do something. Well, maybe not you, but like I sucked. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know what the hell I wanted my show to sound like. I didn't understand any of that stuff. I didn't like the way I sounded. I didn't like my face on video. Like there was so much that I didn't like about it. And I'm so glad that I stuck with it, because when you get to episode 10, you start to relax a little bit. You start to feel kind of okay. Get to episode 15, you're okay with how your voice sounds. You get to episode 20, you kind of understand what the show's going to sound like, what the show's going to look like. You get to 25 and you're in the groove.
Yeah.
And there's a thing in the industry that exists. It's called pod fade. That pod fade exists. It means you start a show and then you just stop doing it for some unknown reason. But this pod fade exists at episode 1, 4, 7, 9, 11, 14, 17, and 21. Those are the episodes that you are most likely going to quit after. So if you can make it to 25, if you can do 6 months at one a week, you are going to really keep going with those things. Everyone I know that has made it to 26 has made it to 100. It's
Okay.
getting over that first hump. That's a big deal. The second big thing that you have to do is you really have to start collecting contact info, emails, phone numbers, CRM type stuff, customer relationship management tool to actually collect that stuff. Because if you do a podcast and you're on Spotify and Apple, you can't collect anyone's information.
No.
If you're on YouTube, people are like, "Oh yeah, you got to monetize. You got to be on YouTube." Yeah, once you get to 1 million downloads, they give you $4,000. But how long does it take you to get to 1 million downloads? It takes forever. So if you have a business, you're trying to make this a business, I recommend you have a website. You post every episode as a blog post. We started doing this with Nonprofit Architect. I had a deaf nonprofit reach out to me, and I didn't understand that the people working there were also deaf. So they asked me some questions, and I sent them the videos like, "Hey, check it out. You can get all the information you need from this video." And they're like, "Well, we can't hear. We need the transcription." So we did the transcription and we sent it out to them for these couple episodes. And we decided that we're going to start posting. Every blog post is going to include the video, the audio, and the full transcript of everything we were doing. And that tripled our web traffic overnight. Yeah, you see what happened to your face right there? It tripled our web
I'm gonna
traffic.
do that as soon as we get off of this video. I'll have to tell my buddy that he's going to have to wait because I'm going to start writing some notes down and figuring out how I'm going to make that happen immediately.
So a 40-minute conversation on a podcast is a 10,000 word blog post that no one had to write.
Yeah.
And people search, right? Search engine optimization, SEO. They search exactly how they talk. Well, if you just transcribe how people are talking, they're going to search for something. You're going to find exactly what it is that you transcribed and posted on your website, because that's how people talk, and they search how they talk. It's not about coming up with this complicated formula. It's not about doing all of the back end work. That stuff can help, but tripling our web traffic overnight from simply including the transcript is just ungodly easy. And so podcasting becomes this machine. The magic about podcasting itself is not that it's a recording, it's the back end syndication piece. Like my show is connected to over 50 channels. So if I post an episode that has a link to my website, I do that once a week. Well, I actually get 50 backlinks to my website every week. Well, if you do that times 50 years, that's 250 or 2,500 backlinks to your website every year that you didn't have to pay somebody to do or to create. Well, now if you release a preview episode, like just like movies do, they come out with teaser trailers and theatrical trailers. Well, if you take a clip from your show and you post it a couple of days ahead of time as a preview, and you also post a link to your website, now you don't just have 2,500 backlinks a year, you have 5,000 backlinks a year. And you have something for someone else to listen to. So we started doing that, and our downloads are through the roof. Like I said, we hit number 4 in the U.S. within 3 months of launching. We ended up on top 10 in 10 other countries. We got featured in Podcast Magazine, alongside of Jocko and John Lee Dumas as top veteran hosted show. I co-founded the Veteran Podcast Awards. We ended up doing so much stuff out there. You can now find the Veteran Podcast Awards and the Veteran Podcast Network, both of which I helped create on Parade Deck now. But all of that stuff, all that mechanics, all that back-end syndication does wonders for your business.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, I have to ask, what is, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you to potentially, work with you or somebody else that's part of your organization, how would they do that?
The easiest way is to go to podcasttitan.com and send me a message through there. If that's really not working, kind of all of my links are at Linktree, Travis D. Johnson. That's linktr.ee/Travis D. Johnson. It has links to all my socials, contacts, my calendar, all that stuff. That's the big hub of all my information.
Okay. Well, that's going to be available. Oh, that's the wrong one. It's supposed to be a ticker. That's all right. I'll let that go. Do this a couple times. I'm still learning the Streamlabs platform. I was a StreamYard guy for a very, very long time. But no, so that's good. You're able to see that there. So again, that's podcasttitan.com, Linktree / Travis D. Johnson. And again, that's linktr.ee / Travis Johnson. So, man, now I have one question that I ask everybody. So as far as a success standpoint, this is not necessarily geared towards entrepreneurs. A veteran who's in transition, when they're trying to figure out their next steps, in your opinion, what's one piece of advice that you would give anybody who's lost in that sea of transition?
You need to ask your inner circle one question. What is my superpower? We don't often see the magic that we have. We don't often see the things that make us special. But the people that are around you all the time, if you ask them that question, they will flood your inbox or your text message or however you ask with big, long, huge answers. When I asked my people that, they're like, what is my superpower? Like, Travis, you can talk to anybody all day, every day, as long as you want. You can take an hour and a half and make it seem like it was only 10 minutes. Like it's so engaging. It's so fruitful. It's so like in the moment. And that's one of the reasons that I've done so well in the podcast game is that the time flies by. Like we've been recording for almost a half an hour right now. And how do you feel time has passed?
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, that's one of the reasons why I like doing podcasting. I don't have any issues talking to people either. And just, I'm always intrigued by people's journey. And, when I was doing this with civilian entrepreneurs as well, it was the same. I'm just intrigued. So many entrepreneurs come from a very rough background, especially as a child. And I mean, most military people, not all of them. I have a friend of mine who's from Staten Island, so we're not going to talk about that guy. So, I'm going to talk about the majority of the people that I've met that decide to go on to be entrepreneurs. They come from a rough background, and they're just ready to go off and do their own thing and be successful at it. And to hear those stories, it's very inspiring. And so to be able to have conversations with people like you and people that relate to people like us, it's just it helps push me forward every single time. And honestly, uh, coming from a guy who has the issues that a lot of military people have that went through either the Gulf War or the Vietnam War, or for Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns, is is we struggle sometimes. And so this is therapy, man. This is great stuff. This really
Mhm.
is. And so if
It
anybody,
really is.
well, it is, yeah. And so if anybody's listening and they're struggling, what I would say as a takeaway from that is that don't struggle by yourself. Talk, ask the questions that Travis asked, but also keep that community, and don't be afraid to
Yeah.
ask them the difficult questions. Make sure make sure you understand that they are there for you still, just like they were at one other time.
Absolutely. I did want to say one more thing if I got another moment or two.
You absolutely do.
Yeah. It can be a heavy lift to start a podcast. What you can do if you're in business is you can be a guest. You can let the podcast host do all the heavy lifting, and you can be a guest. You can be a guest 10 times a day on 10 different shows and get your word out there, right? You try to make it to all these networking events and get to Rotary and Chamber of Commerce and all these things. You can do that from your home with a computer with a pretty cheap setup. And there's a piece of magic that business owners have on podcasting that they don't have anywhere else. And they get to share their story. How often, when you're doing a sales call, do you have a chance to share your story, your why, your journey? You don't have a chance to do that when you're in your regular sales rotation. Someone walks onto a car lot and you're trying to sell them a car. You don't have the chance to tell them why you got into car sales or why that means something to you. You just don't have that time.
Yeah.
But when you go on and you share your story and you share your background and all of those things, when people contact you, they're already bought into you, why you do the thing and what you provide.
Yes.
They come to you already sold on you. They're
Absolutely.
already choosing you. It does all the work for you. Yeah, you're going to have things you're going to tell them about your company or your service or your product or wherever it may be, but they already know they want you.
Mhm.
All that heavy lifting is already done when you share interviews like
Wow.
this.
Yeah. Well, and you get to hear other people's stories. I mean, that I
Mhm.
like to have guests on because I enjoy theirs. And I've been on a bunch of other people's podcasts. You're right. I'm always humbled when somebody chooses me, because that means that they're allowing my ugly mug to be on whatever program they have. So that's a privilege, because not everybody wants to scare the mice out of their house. So
Yeah.
but no, it's a wonderful thing, and you're right. When you're trying to start a business or even start your own podcast, you have to know people have to know who you are. And just starting it on your own and only doing your show, you're going to do a lot of legwork. It's easier to go out there and get on other people's shows. But no,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Travis. I'm humbled that you were willing to come on here today, especially with your background. I mean, this is something that you help people with. So the fact that you're willing to come on my show, I appreciate it. For everybody
Glad to be
who's
here.
oh yeah, thank you. And for everybody who's listening, make sure you like wherever you see this. It's on all my platforms. Subscribe if you're on my YouTube, or if you see this on Spotify. And always remember that we want to keep the conversations going about these shows. And so please put a comment below wherever you see this. And by the way, if you tell me you want to talk to Travis, I'd be happy to connect you guys via email. So let's move forward and grow together. And thank you again, Travis. We'll see everybody else on another episode of Warrior Vetrepreneur Podcast next time.